All right, we're here for the part two of this Huawei Valiant phone screen replacement. You can see that we have our frame here nice and clean. Take all the tape off of it. We have some 3M tape we'll be using here to go ahead and tape this phone up. You'll probably understand how to do this within the first minute or two of this video. If you're a novice or an amateur phone repairer, you may want to watch it all the way through just to see how much tape I use. The goal is to get as much adhesion onto this as possible. Looks like I missed just a little spot here of tape. I'm going to go ahead and pull it off. Like I was saying, you don't want to have any high spots in your taping. The screen will want to lift off, and over time dust will get underneath there and it'll just get worse and worse and worse. So make sure it's nice and clean to start with. So I got this 3M tape. It was either off of eBay or Amazon or somewhere like that. It's pretty cheap, couple of bucks for a roll. I'll be using, I believe this is 1mm tape, something that's pretty thin. It might be 2 actually. I think it's 2mm tape, and I'll be using some 3mm tape as well. We're just gonna kind of pull this back and trim this to fit. This particular phone has an inset bezel kind of in the sides and down at the keys. You see down there it's kind of got that line showing where it's going to fit in a little bit more snug and then a little bit more open at the bottom. So I'm going to tape inside of both of those with different tapes. I'll be using the thinner one to go down the sides and on the inside, and then I'll be using a little bit wider 3mm black tape to go down the bottom down here. So I'm just lining up the tape on the side of the phone, right at the top where it kind of dips in. I'll be using my nylon switcher to press it down. You want to make sure that this tape gets nice and pressed down. You don't want any high spots, so you don't want it to go up the side of the bezel. You want it to sit nice and flush at the bottom. Just using a pair of scissors to kind of cut it to fit. We're using just a little piece right above the buttons. Now, cleaning this phone, from all the tape residue, you would see that this really has tape almost everywhere in the device, and that's kind of what we want to do. We want to put tape everywhere there was tape prior to disassembling it. That way you'll get a great adhesion. It's okay to kind of mish and mash little smaller pieces like this, as long as it's not everywhere on the device. You don't want to overlap into the white portions down here, as that's where the menu back buttons, all those menu buttons are at down there. So make sure that you don't cover those up. Be a little bit meticulous with making sure your tape doesn't overlap on top of those. You get some shadowing in the buttons themselves. Same thing goes for any opening on the device, the camera opening, the ribbon cable opening for the touch and the display. You definitely don't want to cover those up. You can see there's a V shape on the display here. Just debating whether or not I'm going to use the thicker tape, which I think I'll do. So we're going to switch to a little bit different tape here. Now it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but you do want to have a lot of tape on here to get the good adhesion. So just tape in between the buttons at this point. We're just going to go ahead and cut the tape at an angle to kind of fit that inward cut of the phone here. Do the same thing for the opposite side. Go ahead and start down here at the bottom. Let's kind of round the edge of the tape to fit the corners of the phone. We'll cut the tape a little bit short and do that to the other side. Excellent. We'll go ahead and kind of cut the tape to fit the taper on this portion of the device as well, in the upper kind of tier of it. Looks like my backing came off a little bit, which is okay. Just make sure the tape's nice and flat. Looks like it'll be okay. We'll go ahead and cut the tape to fit the opposite side of the device now. I'm going to use my spudger to kind of bend it, see if we can't get a better idea of where to cut it at. Perfect. So we kind of go across the tape and make sure that it's pressed down, so when we go to remove it we don't have any issues. Go ahead and start taping across the top. Really the goal is to put tape down wherever there's not a sensor across the top here. Just make sure not to cover up your proximity sensor, your front-facing camera, any of those really important portions of the device. Go ahead and do the same thing and round the edge of the tape to fit the top of the device. Alright, so we're going to use just a little bit thinner tape to kind of go across the top here. Kind of do a little square around the proximity sensor here on the front. Just try to fill in all the little gaps that we've missed now. All right. Next step is to go ahead and start peeling the backing off the tape. If you see the tape start to pull up with the backing itself, just push it back down, use the edge of your spudger or your pry tool, whatever you're using to pull the backing off, and just push it back down and pull it back up. It should stick down nicely for you. Just like I'm doing there, it's kind of pulling up with the tape backing, so I'm just pushing against the tape itself and pulling up. It seems like the clear tape is a little bit more prone to pulling up the backing. I'm not sure if it's just a little bit stickier or what than the actual black tape, but just be aware of that if you're using clear rather than black. Now I did remove the LCD on this device to avoid touching it a lot with my fingers. I don't want to smudge it and get a lot of prints on there, so I went ahead and removed it. It's a really simple removal process, like I was saying. There's no adhesive on the back here that holds it down. Basically just push on the cable forward. You see a little space behind the LCD. Just put your pry tool in there, it'll pop right out for you. Just don't use a ton of force. If it's stuck, just kind of wiggle it a little bit back and forth, it'll pop right out. So this will be our last little piece to pull back. Go ahead and put our LCD back in. I'm going to just use a little microfiber cleaning cloth here to clean up the LCD. I'm not using any cleaning solution. I just had a couple of fingerprints on the sides and kind of in the corners, so I'm just using a dry cloth to wipe those away. Seems like a circular motion works best for kind of removing that stuff off of there. So just put the cable back in and insert the LCD right back into its place. Use a kind of a blow here to remove any of the dust that might be covering it back up. Just take a final check and make sure we clean out the LCD. I do realize that I left a piece of backing on down there at the bottom. Not the end of the world. Definitely was not on purpose though, so don't feel like you have to do that. We're going to remove the backing off of our new piece of glass. Kind of tilt the ribbon cable a little bit here, try to fit it through the slot. We'll line up the corners here at the top first and the bottom, make sure those fit in correctly. Then we'll work our way up the side of the device. You want to make sure that both of the ribbon cables have been pushed all the way through. You don't want them to kind of jam up behind the bezel. Right now I'm checking to see if they're going to fit back onto the board. It looks like they are. Now this is a little bit of a long video on taping, but if you found it useful, go ahead and hit the like button. If you have any questions about this video, throw them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer those. If you want to see the remaining portion of this series, go ahead and check in the description below this video. All the videos will be in there. As always, I appreciate you watching the video, and I'll catch you on the next one.